Now it's time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. We begin with some economic news as the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, revealed yesterday that the federal government's revenue stood at 6.9 trillion naira in the first quarter of 2025. This emerged as the Senate Committee on Customs directed the Nigerian Customs Service to raise its projected revenue target for 2025 from 6.584 trillion naira to 10 trillion naira, citing the agency's commendable revenue performance in 2024. The chairman of the committee, Senator Issa Jibrin from Kogi West, gave the directive during a budget defense session in Abuja following a presentation by a delegation from the NCS led by Deputy Controller General Jibo Bello, who represented the Controller General. For his part, Edun, who spoke in Abuja at the Citizens and Stakeholders Engagement session, attributed the 40% rise in revenue to ongoing reform, particularly in foreign exchange policy and improved fiscal governance, buoyed by enhanced deployment of technology and automation across ministries, departments, and agencies.
Real GDP growth is on the right trajectory, but at 3.4%, even 3.8% is not enough. That is not the aim, that's not the objective, and that's not the target of Mr. President. It is instead to achieve, in the nearest future, a GDP growth rate on a sustainable basis of somewhere near 7% per annum. And why that figure? That would be more than double population growth. And therefore, that speaks to the fact that you can now move Nigerians out of poverty in their millions by having that level of growth. On the fiscal side as well, with the effort to apply technology, block loopholes, stem leakages, we have had in 2024 a huge increase in revenue from just above 12%, 12.5 trillion to 20 trillion naira, virtually 21 trillion. And in the first quarter of this year, likewise, when we even take April into account, first 4 months, we do have a substantial increase in revenue, and that effort continues.
To some developments in politics now, the management and staff of the National Secretariat of the People's Democratic Party in Abuja on Monday locked up offices and deserted the Secretariat building in protest of an attempt by Senator Samuel Anyanwu to occupy his office as the National Secretary. The party staff, who in a briefing last month pledged loyalty to the decision of the National Working Committee directing the Deputy Secretary, Setonji Koshodeo, to act as the National Secretary, collectively resisted Anyanwu's attempt to access the office of the National Secretary. Meanwhile, acting national chairman of the PDP, Umar Damagum, has disowned Sunday's comments by its National Publicity Secretary, Debo Ologunagba, that the party doesn't need the approval of the Independent National Electoral Commission to hold its National Executive Committee meeting slated for June 30. Now, the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria has decried the proposed implementation of the ban on single-use plastics, which is scheduled to take effect from July 1st, 2025, calling on the Lagos State Ministry of Environment to abandon the move. The association said the implementation of the ban would be a move in the wrong direction and one that was riddled with needless and potentially adverse economic and financial impact on the state and the country. The Director General of MAN, Mr. Segun Ajayi Kadir, made this call yesterday in a statement titled Re-examining the Lagos State Ban on Selected Single-Use Plastic. The statement highlighted that implementing the ban would occasion several job losses, lead to a further reduction in the availability of feedstock for recycling plants and loss of revenue, especially foreign exchange for manufacturers that sell their products in other states and export to neighboring African countries. It also urged Nigeria to position itself to tap into the enormous economic, environmental, and social benefits that are associated with advancing circularity through improved recycling solutions, as the global plastic recycling industry is projected to reach $114.18 billion by 2032. 2. Now, of course, this ban has been a long time coming, and it has been postponed on a number of occasions. It's now imminent. I've seen supermarkets are trying their best with regards to plastic bags. But of course, MAN is trying to point out the fact that it's bigger than plastic bags in supermarkets.
Okay, so a couple of things. Number one, let me start with the federal government before I come to MAN and plastic bags. It's a good one that the federal government is making money. In fact, they've been able to reduce debt service to revenue ratio to about 60%. I mean, remember they over the 90% highs of the Buhari time. But when you look at it, yes, year-on-year increases, over 40% increases. He said it's a testament to better financing. I also think foreign exchange situation has also been part of it, and some other reforms that they've been able to put in, and the fact that, you've ramped up, collection as regards to customs and other things like that. Also, don't forget that you have a tax bill that has been, that has gone through its own gamut now. And you also have multiple, collection points. The fact that you're going to be collecting from, various sources as regards taxes and the likes and all of that. And there's still even so many monies pending. The other day I saw a list of some companies that are owing money as regards governmental royalties and things like that. I think that was totaling about 9.7 trillion. But over 6 trillion the first quarter is, some admirable amount. You're giving the states more in fact and all of that. You've been able to increase the reserves, and ramp up the number of the reserves. These are some good things. But when you look at it, how about the prevailing debt that is now happening? In all those days where we're not making as much, what was the debt, to GDP ratio? And what was the debt burden like? Today, we're taking a lot more debt. We say we are collecting a lot of money. We're taking a lot more debt. The minister also talked about the fact that when you look at it, yes, we didn't get a lot of revenue from oil and all of that. We're taking in a lot more debt now as we speak. We did get a lot of revenue from oil, but there was a quick surge recently due to the Middle Eastern crisis. Let's see how that will reflect. But that's also short-term now because Trump has said, we can't go ahead with this one. Let's have ceasefire. All of a sudden, he's taking a vote fast. Like they always say, Trump's always chickens out. Taco. That's why they call him Taco. But when you now look at the level of debt we are taking, the projects that we are doing, that a lot of people are asking questions about, that is it really needed at this time where we need to cut our coat according to our size? When you look at the level of debt before, that under Jonathan's time, I'm talking about debt to GDP ratio that was over, 20% going to 30%, with 40% thereabout. Now it's well over 50%. When you check the MTEF, Medium-Term Expenditure Framework, and you see the debt that we're going to be taking, recently they released some of the numbers, going to the trillions. Cumulatively, over 40 trillion has been taken in debt. And they say we are making money. First quarter revenue is over 6 trillion, 40% increase from last year. The question is, why can't we do an appropriate accounting to be able to balance our books rather than taking more debts? Because the narrative of, we are doing well, we're raising more money, and we can only do better, yes, but you also juxtapose that with the debt level. Then he also went further to say, yes, we are getting some inroads as regards, crude oil production and the likes, local production. He mentioned the Dangote refinery. Why didn't the minister mention NNPC? When we were saying here that something was going on phony as regards that NNPC revamping of the refinery and everything, everybody said, your mouth is smelling refined, like I always get every time. But when you look at it deeply, today, there's been a report in the paper that the EFCC is now calling some officials of the NNPC to come and account for how much was spent on the 3 refineries. And when we say it was just a bending plan, so why is the minister, if the government claims, we had fixed the refineries they're producing, why is the minister only mentioning Dangote refinery as feeding into the local production stock, producing about 1.2 million barrels per day? Why are they not mentioning the NNPC refinery that they had spent billions on? So these are questions we should ask to be able to balance it. As regards MAN, let's go quickly to it. See, MAN has been having a lot of problems as regards jobs. A lot was lost by the manufacturing sector because of the currency thing, the devaluation of our currency. In fact, they said they incurred close to about 1 trillion or over 1 trillion as regards that. That one is on ground. And when you now ban single-use plastic, it's also going to affect attendant jobs on ground in the economy. So what MAN is saying is, please, Stanford just remember that what you should actually do is to invest in an ecosystem where you can recycle, which we have always talked about. How can you have, collection process that is efficient? One model I'm going to put forward is called the waste-to-waste model. Let people actually sell their waste and people actually make money off selling their waste to be able to boost recycling. I yield the floor here that there's time constraint.
Okay. Let me take the issues one by one. The Minister of Finance has been quoted as saying that Nigeria has made a revenue progression of 6.9 trillion naira in the first quarter of 2025, representing a 40% increase year on year from the 5.2 trillion that was recorded in the first quarter of 2024. And he praised the Nigerian Customs Service for ramping up revenue collection, so customs revenue are going up. But the Senate, also contributing to the conversation, the Committee on Revenue, says, look, they are even benchmarking the revenue collection by Nigerian Customs Service to 10 trillion naira. In other words, there was commendation for Customs Service. So Wale Adeniyi and his team, represented by the Deputy Controller General of Customs, must feel, gratified that their efforts have been recognized, they have been commended. Now, Minister Edun also talked about how the new foreign exchange regime has helped, how fiscal governance has improved, how there has been enhanced deployment of technology, and how there is cooperation across MDAs, even if there are some MDAs that are not remitting. And on the basis of that, he said that, in fact, more money will still come into the coffers. So they're making money, 6.9 trillion. It's improving from 2024 to 2025. However, the question is this, and he also said something about Dangote refinery, 650,000 barrels per day, total 1.2 million barrels per day. Fine. All of that is at the level of masturbation, self-congratulation, chest beating. We now raise the intelligent questions, which are as follows. One, Nigeria is making 6.9 trillion. We would like Minister Edun, the coordinating minister of the economy, to give us a breakdown of that revenue. He mentioned customs, he mentioned the other issues that I have outlined. Okay, what are the details in the spirit of transparency? Which MDAs are the ones that are collecting money and they have not remitted their revenue? Because he says he's optimistic that it will even be more than that and that they can do better than that. Very good. You are making revenue. Now, what of expenditure profile? We also like to know the expenditure profile. He told us that debt service to revenue ratio is 60%. So what have they done with 40%? In a situation where many of the MDAs are saying they are not funded, where many workers within the federal system are saying that salaries have not been paid, where, budget 2024-2025 is not being cash backed. So where is the money going? My own simple issue is that we need more details beyond chest beating. What are the details in terms of revenue? What are the details in terms of expenditure? And why do we have this crisis whereby some MDAs will say they are insolvent because they've not been cash back, they will need 10 million, what they will get is 6 million naira, and I speak figuratively. Because it's not enough to talk about revenue. What is important in the financial fiscal process is to talk about outcomes and impact. What are the outcomes? What is the outflow? And what is the impact to the people? As for PDP, to run very quickly, I think PDP is facing a serious leadership crisis. Now, the Supreme Court, in the matter of who is the Secretary General of the party, I told the party to go and sort out its own affairs, internal democracy within the party. What we see is a party that is in disarray, a party that is having a leadership crisis, a party that cannot organize its own affairs. Even the chairman of the party and the spokesperson of the party, Debo Olugunagba, they can't even agree on simple things. So what is it that has gone wrong with this country, with this party that ran this country from 1999 to 2015, and one of its officials even boasted at the time that they will run this country for 60 years. And now we find the same party in disarray because there's a leadership vacuum. I do not subscribe to the argument because it's conspiracy theory. I do not have Rufai's empirical facts to prove it, that it is President Tinubu and the APC that are disorganizing the PDP. No, it's PDP itself that is imploding from within because it has leadership issues. There are persons within the PDP who should fund the party, who should provide leadership, but they don't have it. They probably have the money, they don't want to support. They probably have the ideas, they don't want to function. Everybody is looking for their own selfish interests. And so they cop out. They serve the purpose of the ruling party. In any case, many of PDP members, at least two important ones, they have jumped ship. They have moved out. So the party itself needs a lot of introspection. And whether the National Convention will hold or not, well, this is confirmation of Gabriel Suswam's point. Senator Gabriel Suswam told us on the same platform that the party is in an intensive care unit. I don't think that the party has left that intensive care unit. Finally, single-use plastics. Now, it's not just in Lagos State or in Nigeria that people talk about single-use plastics. It's an international thing. There's even an international convention on it, which is about the extent to which single-use plastics are non-biodegradable, that's the technical word, and how they pose a threat to the environment. Now, the Lagos State government bought into it and said, look, we're going to ban single-use plastics because of the threat to the environment. Leila Johnson-Salame has done at least 2 reports that I have seen on this station about the threat to the coastal line of Lagos as a result of, single-use plastics causing pollution. And those reports were aired there and all of that. So the Lagos State government has a right, to be concerned about the environment and to take a decision and to say what we're doing. However, the points that have been made by the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria are also, in my view, relevant. What are the points that Segun Ajayi Kadir has made? He says, for example, there was no inclusivity before the Lagos State government took its decision to ban single-use plastics effective July 1, 2025. He said there was no consultation. He said the decision was not data-driven. He said that, the manufacturing community in Lagos State would suffer both economic and social impacts in this regard. I did not see in that statement an attack on the basic principle about pollution, about threat to the environment. I think, going forward, what is important is that the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria in Lagos State should meet with the Lagos State government. This is the kind of consultation they should have done before now, not to wait till the last minute. How many days to July 1 before suddenly waking up? They could have provided the Lagos State government alternative views, and there could have been negotiation. But this is the thing, Nigerians always act last minute, whether, to collect international passport or to collect a national identification number. But I think that the Lagos State government should provide a window for the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria to present their grievances and to negotiate with them and to see whether there are indeed gray areas and alternatives, what they call circularity. That's the word that Segun Ajayi Kadi used. The circularity that he talked about, recycling and all of that, and let them bring their own ideas. I think they should not just dismiss them and say, why are they talking now, which is a typical arrogant Nigeria policy approach. So I rest my case on these issues.
All right, thank you so much for those insightful views. The Special Advisor to the Lagos State Governor on Climate Change and Circular Economy, Titilayo Oshodi, has said that she has been in talks and that Lagos State has had extensive discussions during the one-year moratorium period that was given on this ban on single-use plastics with various sectors and various organizations. So she refutes the assertion from MAN that says that they were not consulted. So there, in between those two statements, lies something that is closer to the truth. However, the reality is that, according to MAN, 89% of operators are set to be displaced. Many of them are women. And what are they saying? They're saying that their issue is not plastic use, or they say that the issue in Lagos State is not that of plastic use, but rather that of plastic waste management, which in itself is a very valid point. However, one cannot say that even with a one-year moratorium, one cannot ban single-use plastics without doing adequate promotion of the alternatives, without bringing in all of the players into the value chain of whatever the alternatives may be. Now, Rwanda is one country that did incredibly well in terms of banning single-use plastics, and a number of other African countries as well. You have Kenya, you have South Africa to some extent as well. And the success of that is based off of creating an inclusive program that transitions people from single-use plastics to whatever the alternatives are. Here in Nigeria, you have people doing incredibly innovative things. There are those who are making bags from cassava. There are those who are using all sorts of locally sourced goods to be able to create an alternative for single-use plastics that is friendly to the environment. So I think that something of this nature can be delayed or can be done in a more gradual way. And there is no harm in extending this deadline if there is a genuine will, the genuine will from those actors who are involved in this industry to reduce their plastic usage. So I think further engagement is important. I don't think a timeline or a deadline needs to be hard and fast, especially because of the people who are involved in this value chain who have no alternatives. This is their bread and butter. Now, very quickly to the issue of the economy, with the federal government saying that they've increased revenue by 40% year on year based off of what was done in Q1 of 2024. A number of statements were made, including a bold statement that the era of ways and means is over, that this government will not have to resort to extensive ways and means. But as has already been pointed out, there are several other debt exposures. Yes, the service to debt, the debt to revenue ratio has been reduced. However, there's still concern about the fact that if this type of value is coming in, if we are able to plug the leakages and create efficiency in the system, what is the commensurate impact on the livelihood and the quality of living of average Nigerians? Because most Nigerians will say that, yes, as much as it is important for the debts to be repaid and for us to exercise fiscal discipline, Nigerians want to see this money trickling down to the quality of their living. And this goes down to many of the states at the state level as well, where you see that many states have been able to pay back a lot of their debts, primarily because they have increased FAC. And also many of them will say that they've been able to streamline their revenue generation processes. However, are those citizens feeling the impact? What are the programs we are seeing? Yes, the focus on infrastructure is very important. We do need the roads and the bridges and so forth. But are the governors being creative with regards to projects that will improve quality of service delivery for people? We are not seeing that. There are instances across the country where you see the state of the schools, you see the state of their healthcare. There's a lot of dilapidation. In those states that are saying that they've invested in primary healthcare centers, the question is, are they able to pay what is required to give the doctors and the nurses the adequate packages that they will need that will incentivize them to actually come to work and to be interested in working in the public sector? So I think it's important, yes, we celebrate an increase in revenue. However, the local Nigerian, the common man, will not celebrate this increase in revenue unless he feels it in social spending in his environment.